Hello, this is Ed Hamler with your World in Review. 9/11, 10 years later. LaRouche's definitive documentary on the 9/11 attacks has done more than just expose the British as the orchestrators, along with the Saudi kingdom, of the 9/11 attacks and the subsequent wars and terror that ensued after those attacks. In identifying the British monetary system as the vehicle by which these kinds of attacks could be launched in the first place, we've also let the world in on the secret as to who it is that's responsible for every major disruption of peace and tranquility that is the result of the natural struggle among sovereign nations to create a bright future. It's all the British. So as Mr. LaRouche emphasized yesterday, this presents us with a new strategic opening, actually. Not just a new opportunity to rebuild the world, but we now have the potential to shift the axis of power away from the now recognizable threat of a continuation of a global British monetary system. Shift that to a collaboration among sovereign nations to usher in a world of development based on an international credit system. And our allies in this will be Russia and China. So, in potential, we're talking about a new epic for mankind. Remember, this happened before. In the early 19th century, the planet was plagued by a maritime empire run by the British then. They ran the slave trade and prevented nations from developing their own manufacturing through control over the textile manufacturing, for example, among other things. This all changed when President Abraham Lincoln introduced the Transcontinental Railroad, and it made the British Maritime Empire look like a bunch of glorified fishermen. This event transformed the way the entire planet was organized, an organization primarily founded around the internal development of nations as opposed to dependence on an empire. This had never been achieved throughout history, even though the concept had been laid down by Charlemagne centuries ago. Now, this is just one example of a complete shift in the organization of the behavior of the human species as a whole. And with a weakened British Empire today, and a potential to form a collaboration between the United States, Russia, and China, we could force another strategic shift on that scale and beyond. And the form of that will be to take mankind, who currently sees itself, its governments, and its behavior generally from a very terrestrial standpoint, to a conception of mankind as a galactic species with galactic behavior, and ultimately to behavior corresponding to the reality that we're the only immortal species on the planet. What then is a monetarist system, right? Nothing. So these are just some of the implications of the release of the LPAC documentary, 9/11, 10 years later. Now, among some of the more peculiar developments around the 10-year anniversary of 9/11 was something that happened on September the 8th, 3 days before, when Lloyd's Syndicate 3500, a Lloyd's of London insurance portfolio, filed a suit in a federal district court of Western Pennsylvania against the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, a number of Saudi government charities, and two major Saudi banks, demanding at least $215 million in compensation for insurance payments the syndicate made to victims of September 11, 2001 attacks. Now, this suit charged and documented that without the financial and logistical support of the Saudi government and government-controlled charities, the 9/11 attacks could not have been possible. The suit provided very detailed allegations about the role of the Saudi regime in sponsoring, financing, and supporting al-Qaeda over a 13-year period from 1988 through September 11th. The evidence compiled for the lawsuit was based almost exclusively on U.S. and Saudi government documents, including publicly available evidence provided by scores of Guantanamo Bay detainees who were picked up as enemy combatants and who were affiliated with either al-Qaeda or the Saudi charities named in the suit. Now, among the nominally private charities named in the suit were the World Muslim League, the Saudi Red Crescent, and a variety of Saudi charities that funded the wars in Afghanistan, Bosnia, Kosovo, and Chechnya. All of these organizations were controlled by the Saudi Ministry of Religious Affairs and by Saudi Arabia's Interior Minister, Prince Nayef, who is now second in line to the king. and who chaired the government committee overseeing all the named charities. Despite not mentioning the British role, which is crucial in this, the suit does present a damning case against the Saudi royal family and some of the most prominent Saudi bankers and businessmen, all of whom were a group of wealthy Saudi princes and millionaires who were financing worldwide jihadi movements, the kind that led the 9/11 attacks. So by now, it should be clear as day that 9/11 was a British-Saudi operation, and now is the time for us to replace that British system with a new just one for the world. As I said, this is centered in a needed collaboration between Russia, China, and the United States. And recent developments in Russia already show signs of promise.
An alliance between Russia and the United States on the basis of what is represented by the globally extended NOAPA project is a live and waiting possibility. Many Russians, as affirmed in a conference just 3 weeks ago, titled Comprehensive Infrastructure Development in Northeast Russia, From Limitations to Growth, are ready and prepared to proceed with the most crucial link between the Eurasian world and the United States, with the construction of the Eurasian connection advocated by Lynn and LaRouche since 1978, of a Bering Strait bridge or tunnel. The well-publicized conference, headed by Russian rail czar Yakunin, and attended by 500 people from Russia, China, South Korea, the United States, and some European countries, focused on the Bering Strait connection. The Russian side of the project is already underway, with the Russian Railways' two-part plan for building a Russian connection between the more central rail grids and the extremity of Russia in Uyelin. Let's take a closer look at the current Russian Railways plans. The first leg, intended for completion by 2015, includes a railroad from Baikal-Amur Main Line to Yakutsk. Yakutsk is the capital of the Sakha Republic, and until now, this city of 250,000 people, located at 66 degrees from the North Pole, has had no rail connection to the rest of Russia. The second phase, defined as top priority for 2016 to 2030, is the construction of a rail line to Magadan, then all the way to the Chukotka village of Uyelin, the potential Russian side of the Bering Strait crossing. The first 266 kilometers of the 800-kilometer track from Burkakit to Yakutsk had already entailed construction of 45 bridges and moving of 29,000 cubic meters of earth when it was completed 2 years ago. The Russians know the pressure is on to increase available railways in Russia. The Trans-Siberian Railway is already operating at capacity, and under current plans, it is expected that the Baikal-Amur mainline freight will increase 4 to 6 times by 2020. But the rail projects will involve much more than just laying rail on top of inert ground. This will mean the development of Siberia, both in resource extraction and their processing into higher value materials, and the development of increasing areas fit for human habitation. Another aspect of the Russian plan for Far East development includes the creation of entire new cities, located far from any areas that may now be considered hospitable, and with vectored scientific objectives. On August 11th, Russian Federal Space Agency head Vladimir Popovkin confirmed the intent to complete by 2018 the construction of the Vostochny Cosmodrome Space Launch Center, the first Russia-based spaceport. Construction of the Science City will begin next month. Over 5 years, 30,000 workers will build research centers, an academy for young scientists, an astronaut training center, and space manufacturing facilities in the Amur region near the Russian-Chinese border. With this potential already underway, what kind of explosion of economic potential for the world could occur if the United States got its act together?
Now, this doesn't even scratch the surface of what's possible under a U.S., Russia, and China economic alliance, but merely provides a window into what mankind could achieve now. But guess what? All of this will mean nothing with the United States under Barack Obama. We have to realize that this optimistic perspective is time sensitive, as the entire blowout of the 9/11 British monetary system threatens to bring down the rest of the world with it. So, a Russia-China-United States alliance is the urgent form of political organization, not only to create a future, but to stave off the destruction of nations in the present. So we'll have more on this in the coming days, but for now, this is Ed Hamler signing off. Good night.